rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Well, you know, according to Larry David, I can still wish you all a Happy New Year. But as we record this show, January 7th, that's the cutoff. For you Curb Your Enthusiasm fans, you know, January 7th, after that, no more Happy New Year. It just becomes awkward and weird, according to LD. So, on behalf of all us here at Rebel Force Radio, Happy New Year 2026. Happy to be here with our very first show of the new year. And there is lots to talk about. New rumors, of course. The latest rumors about the impending resignation, stepping down. Right? There were so many different semantics surrounding Kathleen Kennedy's vacating the role. Can we say that? Vacating the role as president of Lucasfilm. But rumors are that that is imminent, like within the next couple of weeks. So we'll be talking about that. Plus, if there's time, Star Wars in pop culture, and a few more surprises along the way. So grateful for you all being with us to kick off 2026 with Rebel Force Radio. And by Rebel Force Radio, I mean me, Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. We're back. We're back in the saddle again for more RFR in an all-new year. And you're right, Jason. According to Curb Your Enthusiasm, January 7th is the last acceptable day to wish someone a Happy New Year. And this show is going to launch on the weekend of the 9th. And so here we are kind of skating on the thin ice.
Yeah, we're teetering,
right,
aren't we?
We are a little
teetering.
Bit. So Happy New Year, while it's still acceptable. But remember, that was an extension from Larry's initial idea of making the deadline January 3rd.
Yeah, that's pretty hardcore. January 3rd.
I'm kind of on board with the January 3rd.
You're on board with it. You agree with that. Wow.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, you see so few people in those first couple of days of the new year. I mean, I think giving it a week to get back into the swing post-holidays and see your colleagues at work or, you know, family members or things like that, I think the 7th makes a lot of sense. I can't be behind you and LD on the 3rd.
Yeah. It usually just lasts that first week. You're back at work.
Right.
And then by that weekend, it's stale.
Yeah, it's
for sure. It's very stale.
You know, it's low-hanging fruit when it comes to the small talk. You know, you get stuck in the elevator or the stairwell or the worst, when you're walking into the day job with somebody and like, oh, geez, I got to talk to you the whole way in. Jeez.
Is there another route I can get inside this building?
Oh, I've done that before.
Yeah, me too.
I've done that before.
Me too. Yeah, I know each and every way to get into just about every office building in downtown Chicago. So, but it is good to be back there. You know, of course, as often happens right at the new year, some Star Wars news or hot rumors start to catch our attention. And right now, it's a continuation of a story that's been going on for several years. We've constantly charted the progress of Kathleen Kennedy's eventual fading into, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something.
Just
Star
don't
Wars-y
call it
to
retirement,
say.
Whatever you do, Jim. If you recall, she took great umbrage at the word retirement. She's not retiring.
Right. Well, yeah, she's going to fade away and become a Force ghost, you know,
right?
Because she's not going to be running the company anymore, or is she? You know, she's definitely going to be a presence there, and you know, we'll get into all of that.
Multiple projects, yeah, certainly in the works that she's a big part of. Will be very interesting, and then this whole co-presidency. We'll break it all down because it's very interesting.
Yes.
Strategy for any company to go with that. You know, who does the buck stop with? Who is it going to stop with? Right. But before we get into all that, how about we take the moment to catch up with you all with a little listener mail?
Let's do it.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message, Doctor, the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Sorry, this is my bad. I had it in the wrong folder. RFRVM.
Let me guess what VM stands for. Vehicular manslaughter. Vagina monologue.
Jason and Jimmy, this...
Okay, here we go.
Jason and Jimmy, this is Patreon member Old Ben Ken, and just wanted kind of a perspective from you guys. I was thinking about how someone called in about the old, video games, Dark Empire and all that. It was really cool to hear the perspective from that time. I guess I was born in 2008, so I wasn't even alive when the Clone Wars movie came out. So that's how young I am. But I was going to ask about what it was like when the Genndy Clone Wars was coming out. What was that experience like? Was it on Cartoon Network? And I kind of think, if I remember correctly, they were like 5-minute episodes. They released over the time of year. What was your guys' perspective on it and the general fan consensus? I'm just wondering, because I didn't even know the show existed till it was on Disney Plus. I think I'd seen stills from it in, books and whatnot, but I just thought they were, comic books or something. So just wanted to hear your perspective. Glad to hear you're doing well, and may the force of others be with you.
Well, let me tell you, Ben, back in my day, we had 2D, not 3D animation, and we liked it. Yeah, I have great fond memories and I'm joking, but I love questions like this because, I sometimes will ask Jimmy, because I wasn't around, at least too consciously, with the release of the first Star Wars film, and so I'll ask him sometimes, hey, what were you thinking about when this first came out? So I totally appreciate it, and it's a lot of fun to look back. I have great fond memories of the Genndy Tartakovsky series. It was the very first animated Star Wars anything after droids and Ewoks, and growing up in the mid '80s and seeing the potential that was maybe there for a Star Wars animated series, and then the way that series started was just mind-blowing. It was just completely it was intense. It was the artwork, again, two-dimensional, was really simple but yet really, really unique and interesting. And I mean, Genndy Tartakovsky at that time was a giant. I mean, he was practically running most of the original programming on Cartoon Network with shows like Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack. And the way I remember it, Jim, George was a big fan of Samurai Jack, and he had specifically asked for Genndy Tartakovsky when he talked to Cartoon Network about producing a Star Wars cartoon. The one thing I remember Genndy saying in interviews was that George initially said, you only get 1 minute per episode. And Tartakovsky said, I can't do anything. That's a TV commercial. I'm not going to do TV commercials. We're going to tell stories. So George and Genndy compromised, in 3 to 5 minutes was where they landed. But Genndy was handpicked by George to do this.
Yeah, well, I think Genndy was under the assumption that he was going to be involved in the future of Star Wars animation.
Oh.
And a show like The Clone Wars, which was eventually run by George Lucas and Dave Filoni, well, I think Genndy thought that would have been his future.
Yeah.
Had he stuck around. But it got really strange following the release of those shorts. And I'll get to what I think about the quality of those shorts and everything and what the experience was like when they were on Cartoon Network. I'll get to that in just a minute. But just the sort of fallout of the Tartakovsky Clone Wars microseries was that after the little cartoons made their runs and everything, it was released. It was all edited together and released in 2 volumes as DVDs. And those were great to have.
I got them right here.
There you go. He's got them right there.
Volume 1 and Volume 2. And they did not last long on the shelves. They went out of print very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I had to scramble to get Volume 2 on the secondary market. So they were being buried, it felt like. It wasn't something that Lucasfilm continued to release. There was like an initial printing of these DVDs, and they were gone.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the reason for that is because once those initial DVDs were pressed and sold, George had decided he was going to run Star Wars animation and bring the Clone Wars back in a big way with computer-generated imagery way beyond the line art that the Genndy Tartakovsky series was offering. And he really wanted to try to break boundaries as far as how far you could push television animation. So when he got that bug up his ass, then the Genndy Clone Wars series ceased to exist.
It is no longer considered canon.
Oh, okay. Well, I can see.
It's Legends material.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so.
No, I mean, that's the way Lucasfilm classifies it.
Yeah, right. Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I don't care how some corporation classifies my Star Wars. I'll classify it myself. And if I don't see any contradictions with anything, then I'll roll with it as canon. Head canon, pal. That's the focus determining your reality right there. And he battled Ventress, and he had this Vision Quest he went on, and that was really neat. But once George decided to go forward with Clone Wars, marketing and things like that, they worry, there's going to be confusion between the 2 series. And so George was just like, bury it. Who cares? I didn't make it.
Yeah, he did it with the holiday special. He can do it with Clone Wars. And there's only one small little article that separates the 2 shows in terms of their title. Technically, Genndy's is Star Wars Clone Wars, and the Filoni series is Star Wars The Clone Wars. Kind of like the real Ghostbusters, back in the 80s. But I mean, you look at the legacy of this show, Jim, you said Ventress. It gave us Ventress. It gave us our first look at General Grievous. We got introduced to voice actors, talent like James Arnold Taylor and Tom Kane.
True.
There was a lot that sort of influenced what would come later, particularly with the voice talent. One big exception to that is Matt Lucas did this sort of dead-on impression of young Hayden Christensen in the Genndy series, and then, of course, that role went to Matt Lanter to completely reinvent the character of Anakin Skywalker, really.
Yeah, he sure did. He gave, in the personality department, let's just say, Anakin seemed a lot cooler in the hands of, or the vocal cords of Matt Lanter, as it were. But don't you Hayden fans get on me? I'm a big prequel guy, so don't get on me.
The Clone Wars, the Genndy Clone Wars, though, was part of this effort by George to allow the tie-in media to tell the story of the Clone Wars in quote-unquote real time between the releases of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. They were doing it through comics. I mean, George really thought that, or Lucasfilm, I don't know if it was George specifically, but certainly marketing and publishing and all of that thought, well, what we can do to fill the gap in between, because folks, there used to be 3 years between movies, 3 years, and all we got were 3-minute, micro episodes of animation. So they had, from 2003 to 2005 really to fill up the time. And this Clone Wars series was part of it. And I remember watching these things and getting really into it, and then it would be over. Like it was abrupt and frustrating. So it was kind of a challenging thing to experience because it just felt like a tease. I remember feeling like, well, just come on, George, give us a 22-minute episode.
Yeah. Well, we had the old VCR hooked up and rolling.
Yeah.
So it was
yeah.
easy to rewind that business.
Yeah.
Maybe we were in the TiVo age by that point in time and burning them onto disc. I can't really keep track of my technology.
I feel like maybe that I might have experienced some Genndy Clone Wars on a VHS, hastily, taped over something. But so the first volume, 2003, 2004 was across 20 different episodes, and these things ranged, from a minute and a half to 3 minutes. And then in 2005, we found out that we were going to get 12 5-minute episodes. And we thought, wow, we are living now, man. 5-minute episodes. But the cool thing about that was it was going to lead you right into the events of Revenge of the Sith. So, and the movie obviously hadn't come out at that point. So this was, I remember being even more excited for that second volume in 2005 because I'm like, holy crap, this is stuff that's happening right now leading into the release of the movie.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It was a big event when those little episodes were dropping around my house. Michael was like 9, so he was all on board with this whole level of importance I was putting on these 3-minute little cartoon,
appointment
shorts
viewing, right? I mean, it was
a
new one's coming out tonight.
Again. Or we would get warmed up by watching maybe the last few previous ones, just to get our head straight. Okay, let's go. It's coming on in 5 minutes. Let's go. You got the Taco Bell and all of that stuff. So I think this was before our whole Friday night Clone Wars Taco Bell tradition kicked in. But there could have been Taco Bell involved.
There might have been tacos. Tacos may have been consumed during these.
So I had a lot of fun with that and obviously saved all the episodes and treated it like it was canon. I mean, it was canon to me just as much as any Dark Horse comic book or Del Rey novel that had the Star Wars logo on it. But, interesting more fallout from the show is the depiction of General Grievous was significantly more menacing and deadly than what we got in Revenge of the Sith. And I think a lot of people were a little disappointed by that.
I was going to call that out. To me, there's two scenes. Well, there's a lot of scenes, but there's two that jump out to me that kind of show this series, the range of this series. And one of them is that moment when we meet Grievous for the very first time and the Jedi are all hunkered in that cave. And they did this a lot on the Genndy series where they would drop the soundtrack. There'd be no score, no music, and it would just be the environmental sounds. Yeah. And in this case, it was the sounds of the mechanic limbs of Grievous walking, and you had no idea who or what it was going to be.
Exactly. And he seemed like he was ginormous too. But he was just very menacing. He didn't appear to be vulnerable like he does in the Revenge of the Sith with all the coughing and the wheezing and all of that. None of that vulnerability is present in him. He just seems really deadly and really driven, and the Jedi are just absolutely terrified of him. So when he appeared in Revenge of the Sith and the Jedi are treating him kind of like a joke and he's, you see all those vulnerabilities, you say to yourself, well, the setup in the Genndy Clone Wars was not exactly what we ended up getting. Far from it, actually. Now, I'm not judging and saying good or bad.
Yeah, but
I think Grievous also turned out to be a much more complex character in the hands of George Lucas as opposed to just this like creature lurking in the shadows. But still, at the same time, there was a little
less edge. Yeah, a little less bite.
The edge would have been nice.
And you would think that because the idea was that Grievous gets injured right before the events of Revenge of the Sith, and that's why he's doing the coughing and the wheezing, and you see the injury in the Genndy series. And but when you go and you watch The Clone Wars, Grievous is pretty much the same as he was in Revenge of the Sith. He's not as menacing as he was built up to be in the Genndy series.
He has his moments, though. I mean, such a freak of nature like he is. He has his moments. He's always going to be a little menacing. You know, that guy splits his arms in half and he's got the 4 sabers going. I consider that to be rather menacing. But we always see he's met his match every time we come across him.
Oh yeah,
in Revenge of the Sith, it's like this guy is just something just to cut through until we finally kill him. I mean,
he's a mid-level. He's a mid-level boss if you put it in like video game vernacular. The other sequence that I wanted to mention is this is in the very first episode of the Genndy series, Chapter 1, and when it shows younger Anakin, Episode 2 era Anakin, leaving to go fight the Clone Wars, and he waves to Padme, and Across the Stars is playing, and that's an example of how tonally it tried to match so that it would be bookends or, fit right in between these two movies. So you got on the one hand, Grievous, which really deviates from what we see. But on the other hand, you have the John Williams score itself being used right there in the Genndy series.
Yeah, in a very healthy way, too.
Yeah.
And, other great things, some things, in Revenge of the Sith do get set up. We see why there's a battle going on over Coruscant. When the beginning of Revenge of the Sith starts, that's all in reaction to Palpatine being kidnapped, which is also something that we see get resolved in Revenge of the Sith. And so I appreciate those little setups that is it the micro series or the macro series? What are they called? The micro series. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Genndy series. I always just call it the Genndy series. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I like calling it the micro series sometimes too, just to make it sound like something created in a lab or something.
But you know what? You joke, but we knew. I remember, and it was probably in Star Wars Insider or something. We knew that George looked at this as an experiment. I remember knowing that, I remember George saying as much as that he was, let's just see how this works. Let's see how this goes. And, so I can understand Genndy being maybe a little heartbroken because if you go back and look at some of the bonus features on these discs, most of them are all on YouTube. It's worth it. If you have not seen the series, it's definitely worth checking out. It's about 2.5 hours worth of content alone, and then there's some great bonus features. But Genndy is a dyed-in-the-wool Star Wars fan. Like, he loves Star Wars. So this, for him and his team, was like the thrill of a lifetime.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was disappointment attached to it, too, when the Clone Wars continued without him.
Yeah.
And during that period of time when they just kind of wished it out of existence. That would have hurt. That would have hurt, I think.
Yeah.
But, at least the guy had a career that was rolling, at least at that time. I don't know what he does now. I'm assuming the same stuff he was doing back then. I don't know if any of those shows are still around.
What did he just do? He just did something film-wise. It just escaped me, but he's doing okay. He landed on his feet, we'll put it that way. But it did also create merchandise. There was a line of action figures in that Genndy style, and I think some of them are just fantastic. They hold up to this day.
And, that was a big part of the Star Wars machine back at that time, was to accompany any release with a lot of action figures for fans to purchase. And, there were 2 lines of Genndy action figures. One was very accurate to the way the characters looked in the series itself. But then there was another line. It was sort of a sub-line from the main Hasbro line that featured realistic versions of all those characters.
That's right. Yeah, right. I remember that now, yeah.
And including the characters from the films that we see in the micro series, but with different wardrobes and stuff, like Anakin as he was dueling Ventress, or that, the classic topless Anakin, and he's got those tattoos the slugs gave him.
Yeah. And there was
the blue lines,
right? And they, of course, the card backs, it featured artwork of Hayden Christensen, with the tattoos, and so that was a really interesting era. There was a great Mace Windu with clone trooper armor, I remember as well.
Well, the Obi-Wan with the clone trooper armor was just, I thought that was just a great look and visual.
Oh, yeah.
Have him, but I must still wear my robes. I'm not going to be,
right.
So the kids at home will know it's me.
Yeah.
Not just some clone trooper.
Yeah, the hybrid.
D was not doing the voice of the clone troopers at that time. No,
as a matter of
clones.
fact.
Before clone troopers really had a personality. Yeah, clone troopers didn't really get a personality until Revenge of the Sith and then, of course, the Clone Wars series, where they got a lot of personality.
You never see them in the Genndy series with their helmets off.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, you don't. So looking back on it, it was... I mean, if you watch it now, I'm sure people think, it's dated. It doesn't line up exactly canonically, but man, it was an exciting time between those two films. And when you got fresh, something on TV to watch to pass the time, it was 3 years, felt like an eternity. And you didn't have no Rebel Force radio to help you either. There was no RFR in between prequels.
It's just Star Wars was such a machine at that point in time. And it wasn't something that audiences took for granted, like I think they do today. It was just a machine. And like I said, we had 2 action figure lines connected to a show that had episodes that lasted 3 minutes, I mean, I'm still waiting for the Bad Batch. And that show's been off the air for a couple of years now.
And the combined length of this series was 2.5 hours, whereas Bad Batch, I mean, my God, 3 seasons, 12 episodes per season, at 20 odd minutes or whatever it was. I mean, it doesn't even compare. But you're so right. The machine needs fixing. And I know we live in a different world, but I still think that you could crank that machine up and get it working better than it is now.
Oh, of course. We wouldn't be here if we didn't feel that way. And we always want to see Star Wars win. So naturally, we're rooting hard for the Mando and Grogu next year. And
this year.
Oh, God, it's all right. That's right.
This year.
You know what I just did? It's like when you're filling out a form or something those first few weeks of 2026, you write 2025 just out of muscle memory and stuff.
Sure.
That's what I did right there, but verbally. So,
a verbal typo.
Yeah. Collect them all. There'll probably be many during this show because there were a few of them this week.
But thanks for the voicemail. I really enjoyed kind of going back and thinking on this series. Like I say, I think it holds up. It's worth the watch. It's a great time capsule. It helps you understand where fandom was at the time and how we counted down the days, the weeks, the months for the next Star Wars film.
Plus, I like the part where they kidnap Palpatine, too. You get a hammerhead Jedi, and that's just fun stuff. There's a lot of striking visuals in it. And that was one thing that Tartakovsky really had a grasp on, was how to present Star Wars in a way that George Lucas would, but just with less tools in the toolbox. And I thought they did a great job with it. Just talking about it makes me want to sit down and watch it again on Disney+. So might have to do that a little later. And if you haven't ever watched it, go ahead. I mean, like our young guy, young Ben Ken, he just stumbled across it one day.
Yeah, didn't even really
what's this?
Know about it. Yeah.
I mean, that's just such a different perspective as a Star Wars fan than I'll ever experience. And I find it fascinating to hear people talk about that. I've done the deep dive into a lot of rock bands over the years. And when you have those discoveries, it's thrilling, when you dive deep into a catalog of entertainment that's been around for 50 years, you start making discoveries.
It was funny because we were talking about Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I turned on a friend of mine at the day job. I said, "You got to watch Curb," and he started watching it. And I know you had been after me for years, and when he started watching it, I said, "I'm almost jealous because I'd like to go back and watch it again for the first time." because it was so good. It's like you're in store for a lot of good laughs, across many, many nights as you binge that show. So for people that haven't seen some of this stuff, I think about people that haven't watched the Clone Wars. Yeah. And you have so much great stuff to go back and enjoy.
Yeah. It's worthwhile. Yeah, it's animated, yes, and that does turn some people off. Let's face it.
Sure. Yeah.
In certain arenas, it turns me off a lot. I mean, it's just. But Star Wars, come on.
Yeah.
I'll take more. Give us a Darth Maul show. Come on, let's go.
Yes. So thank you, old Ben 10, also for being a Patreon member. We
10.
appreciate
Ben 10. Ben 10. That's another animation shout out, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, the Ben 10.
Was it their show called?
What was the show that Filoni came out of Avatar? Yeah, Last Airbender. So that's where he
and King of the Hill.
And King of the Hill. That's right. Yes.
He worked on that show.
And look at him now.
Yeah, I know.
More on that soon.
Happy New Year.
It's a little late, frankly, for the Happy New Year's,
Why? Just happened a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, that's too long. Statute of limitations is kind of run out on the New Year's. 3 days. Plenty.
3 days.
Rebel Force Radio.
I think some thanks are in order.
Yes. Okay. So with the holiday season, you guys are so generous, and we certainly don't solicit gifts from anybody. And I'm always just amazed at the generosity of our listeners who do actually give us things. So, and with it being the holiday season, Scott St. Louis sent something, I'm sure. Sorry, Scott. That's a crummy thank you. But Scott is one of the more generous of the listeners, and he's always sending stuff. I've told him to stop, actually. And now it's on the record. But we have from Guillermo, he sent us these little tiny Funko Pops. So
yes,
we have them here, and
I got
they're very interesting. They're
room.
so small. They're tinier, smaller than an inch in height. Yeah, and I have.
They're
three
a
of them.
Funko Pop for your Funko Pop. Like if your Funko Pop bought a Funko Pop, that would be the size of it.
Perfect. So they're coming up with new ways to market this idea. It even comes with this little plastic shelf thing you could put them on.
Yeah.
And then I have 4 of them here, but one of them is a mystery. We have Luke Skywalker Hoth, we have R2-D2, and we have Chewbacca. And they're fun. They're just these little plastic things, and they resemble Funko Pops still in the box. But like I said, they're tiny. They're not even an inch tall. There's Chewie with the dead black eyes that mark the Funko Pop experience,
Well, they get around all those likeness rights with those dead black eyes.
Oh, look, and I mean, he just came right out of the little plastic box, and so you can have your Funko Pop loose if you prefer. But I like the real kitschy value of having it still in the little box. So let's see who I got. I have a mystery one here. So it's all wrapped up in black.
Oh,
like, who could it be? Who could it be?
It's a blind box.
Rose Tico, I'm betting, Oh, yay!
Save what you love, Jimmy Mac. Save what you love.
It is Princess Leia.
Ooh, Bespin. Bespin. Oh, what have we here?
Ooh, yeah.
There she is, yeah. That's one of my favorite looks of hers.
Yeah, it's a cool look.
Dig that one.
Cool look. So, well, thank you, Guillermo. Those are a lot of fun, and I hope this doesn't open up a whole collecting bit of madness for me. It's like, I need more of those, because that happens sometimes. They're called Bitty Pops, Funko, Bitty Pops, Bitty Pops,
little
Bitty Pops. So that's from Guillermo, who's an RFR VIP. Thank you, Tanya, for sending me this nice Star Wars Christmas card.
Thank you, Tanya.
She's an RFR VIP, and she was great fun at Rancho Obi-Wan when we were out there in September. And this, Tanya, is the only Christmas decoration that appeared in my house in all of December. Because I was too late out to, pull the tree out and set up all the decorations and everything. Wendy had a couple of little doodads around and stuff. No tree, no nothing.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I got two 20-something-year-old men living in my house, and I don't charge them rent or anything. You think one of them could have had the idea that, what's missing this Christmas? The tree, the Christmas tree. And they could have taken it upon themselves to set that sucker
No
up,
one
but
said,
no.
hey, let's surprise Dad. Dad's had kind of a rough holiday, so let's surprise him when he comes downstairs. We'll have the tree all set up for him.
No, didn't happen, pal.
All right.
Didn't happen. So I guess I've been a Grinch for this Christmas season. But no, you know what? It was like, it's just, that's my thing. I do that every year.
You do that, yeah, right.
It's I didn't put any pressure on anyone to do it, and I kind of strung them along, saying, well, when I get home, we'll take care of it. Everyone was expecting me to bounce back a lot quicker than I did, except for the doctors, who knew exactly what I was into, and they told me not. They told me not to push it. So, but that's all behind me now. I'm recovered. I'm good. Just like one of them could have said something. I bet we could set that tree up without Dad. We don't need that guy. Let's do it. Let's prove to him. These guys, Gen Z, they never want to prove anything to anybody. Yeah. They're just kind of here. But I love my boys very much, and they excel in so many different areas of life, and they're my best friends, so I don't mean to bash on them too much. Next year, I'm going to supervise and have them set it all up just so they'll be ready for the future.
Right.
Because I have a feeling
they got to learn how to do these things.
They got to learn this. Now, this is one that'll blow you away. I probably need the full screen to show you. But Jeff Holland sent me this out of appreciation for all the RFR Q&As that I've hosted with him. Mm-hmm. It's the hollow chess table from the Millennium Falcon. That's all it is.
Holy cow, look at that.
That's all it is. And it's playable, too, and these characters light up and everything.
Wow. That's amazing. That looks like the one that they have there at Galaxy's Edge. I think that's a Galaxy's Edge piece.
Oh, is that right? Well,
I think so.
Quite possibly is. And so it's a really, really great piece. Oh, I saw a picture of...
be careful. Jimmy Mack almost dropped it here. We're going to have a real life... Didn't Harrison Ford drop a Lego Millennium Falcon once on...
Oh, yeah.
Was that Jimmy Kimmel or Fallon?
That was Conan.
Yeah,
It was Conan with that nutty producer of his, Jordan. I forget Jordan's last name, but he's one of the greatest deadpan comedians of all time. Jordan. But yeah, and he's a big Star Wars fan, and so they were playing a prank on him, I guess. But okay, and then we have, is that it? Or did we have someone else on the list? So thank you, Turtle Wars. He sent more of those cans, but I think we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about those. Those are great. Those are the foreign, some of the foreign releases.
Rifen sent these, Scott Rifen, who's he's a radio broadcaster in Florida and somebody that we go way back with. He's a friend of Big Steve Glosson. Shout out to Big Honkin'. Happy New Year, Honk. And this is from the Disney parks. It's their holiday R2.
Oh, I love that. See, these I like. I like these. The Black Series, Candy Cane Stormtrooper's not really my thing, but there's something about the whimsical nature of the Astromechs, and I think it's the little size, the 3 3/4 inch size. I really like those. This is R2H25, so holiday 25. That's great. That's great. I have quite a few of those. Mm-hmm. That one I missed out on. I'll have to pick that
holiday
up.
Holiday 25. See, I thought the 25
secondary
just
market.
Christmas happens on the 25th, so I think you're right.
I
think you got it. I think you interpreted it correctly.
I think they come out with a different, like I think last year was R2H24 or something like that, or R4H24 or something. But yeah, that's
Something
awesome.
like that.
People are so generous. I love it. Our listeners are generous all year round, but especially during the holidays. It's great. And thank you all so much. And the Patreon just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I've got more Toying Around with Swank coming. I've got them lined up here. I've got a system. I learned a lot after doing that first episode. There's some things that I'll definitely fix, but everybody was very, very kind and supportive, and I loved it. So you gave me just enough of a taste. I want more. I want more.
Good. You know more that's coming. You know who's been talking a bigger podcasting game lately is young Dylan. After his podcast that he did with us to end the year.
Oh, he's got the bug, huh?
He got bit by the bug, yeah. So he's considering different ideas and stuff right now.
Cool. It's water's warm. Jump in.
I would love that if he got involved in it in some way.
That'd be great.
But yeah, and that was a real highlight for me, was having him on the show last year. We did post up on YouTube a segment of that where we're talking to him about his memories of Ahsoka. Memories of an Ahsoka superfan is what the video is called. And if you want to take a look at that on our YouTube, you'll see that it also does include the video message that Ashley Eckstein so generously sent for Dylan for his birthday. So
it's so cool.
I mean, she's the coolest. So RFR Q&A has returned, and the first show out of the box was RFR Q&A number 273, ranking the Star Wars streaming series with RFR VIP Peter Beiser, who was podcasting from a cruise ship in the middle of the Caribbean. He ditched his family to come and talk the wars with yours truly for an hour and a half or whatever, and
he had to rebook all these interviews, all these Q&A recordings. So it's like, hey,
yeah, that is true. that is true. He had this list of questions. It was like something he had found somewhere. It's like one question for each day of the year, and it's a wide-ranging variety of like real-life topics that we have a lot of fun talking about.
Oh, okay, so not Star Wars.
Not necessarily. I always try to put a Star Wars spin on things, but in some cases it was hard to do. Oh, we did release a video of Puppet Lando singing at Rancho Obi-Wan.
Yes.
If you'd want to check that out just to see the puppet singing, that's on our YouTube channel, so you don't have to be a member of Patreon to see it. Also, we posted up a highlight from that last show of the year. Nerdy, dirty, and tasteless Star Wars jokes with Baby Belushi. And I know among, the Baby Belushi fandom, this video has had a lot of play.
Let me tell you, I gave out 2 copies as Christmas gifts of that book. After the interview, I picked up 3, 1 for myself and 2 for a couple of friends, and they were a big hit. Let me tell you, you got to have the right person to give those books to. And I had 2 on my list, and they loved it. I'm still getting texts. They take a picture of the page, like, yeah, I know, I read it.
You definitely want to give it to your friend who has 2 qualities: knows what a Rhodian is and has a sick and twisted mind. Those are the only 2 qualities. They're a big enough fan to know what an Ithorian is. Do you know what an Ithorian is, Jason?
I do know what an Ithorian is.
What?
They're the Ithorians are the. You're putting me on the spot here.
Yeah, I know. I should have done that. I thought you would answer it. I had more confidence.
They're Ithorians. I'm thinking of all the wrong things.
All right. Well, listen, man. I put you on the spot. That's true. So I'm not even going to answer it. Just because I don't want to be like the wise guy. But I'll tell you what, that's something that
But we know you know it.
That's something that has turned me off of Star Wars novels over the last 10 years, is that they're constantly introducing all of these alien characters in the pages of a book. And so they'll call them by name. when they introduce them, like Joe Bob, the Ithorian, right? And then as you get, you start moving along.
Why can't they just call him the Hammerhead?
Well, there you go. That would be very accurate. But Joe Bob.
Do we have West End Games to thank for all these names? Why couldn't they have just settled with Hammerhead?
But see, a lot of those alien names have become so complicated with, hyphens and apostrophes and things in there. It's like, I don't even know how to say a lot of this stuff. And then they repeat it, like they'll just only refer to the character as their alien species. So
the Ithorian looked
at the Rhodian.
Incredulous.
Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, but with much more complicated alien species names. I'm going for the easy ones here.
Yeah.
I don't really know all of those species names myself, and so that's
I just
when it gets confusing.
I just sometimes get them confused. They flip flop around in my head.
Sure, like I could only come up with Ithorian and Rhodian right now.
Aqualish.
Aqualish is a good one. Yeah, so we could do the Cantina gang. That's as far as we can. You start like. What's that one they put in all of the sequel films? And it has sort of like a flat face it's with little things dangling down, and there's
he's flat. They're always fleshy colored. They're always like kind of like a Caucasian.
They're like the Abinettos, I think they're called.
Abinetto,
but I might be saying that wrong. And then what happened to like Hutts, Ewoks? That's easy stuff, That's we're living in Fat City with aliens named that. Abinetto. I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? I mean, look at the names of some of these new species, and they're just,
Abinetto. It's so funny that you said Abinetto because it's a little ironic because Abinetto is an Ithorian Jedi. So I think you were thinking Ithorian, and then you said Abinetto.
Okay, well, I mean. It's something like that. I think I'm just mispronouncing. And none of the sequel stuff really stuck with me. So
that's why I have the Star Wars encyclopedia over there. It's very, very helpful.
That's what I find I find myself grabbing that while I'm reading the books. I'll look things up and go to Wikipedia.
Yeah, so you can have a visual, right? So you can have a visual of what you're, That's helpful.
But then, it goes right through me. I forget then the next time they mention the alien by his species name only, I'm like, who the hell are they talking about? I have to, I already looked this up. Okay, I know this one, And then I just get sick of reading after a while because it's too much jumping around.
It's a workout. It becomes work.
I can't settle in.
Yeah.
And I have to settle in. I must settle in. Settling in is key.
Yes.
So what else is going on at RFR Patreon, though? I love the twists and turns these Patreon plugs take us on. It's like it's Tangent City here.
Yeah, everything goes Patreon. Like that on this show. That's what we
true.
do.
That's true, and that's why we bring it back then. And we also released RFR Q&A number 273, Star Wars Celebration Flashback with Eric from Phoenix. Eric sent me this massive photo gallery, which we also posted to Patreon, so you can look at the pictures and follow along with our conversation, or you could just watch the full show video and see the photos as I put them up on the screen. But Eric has recollections from RFR Live at Reggie's, our Patreon-only live show we did from Alulu Brew Pub on the South Side, and he shares some really awkward photo ops he had with cosplayers, especially ones that were dressed as a certain set of Star Wars twins that we see in the cantina. See Eric standing there, stiff as a board. And so you get to see all these photos and you get to hear me busting his
Who was
balls
stiff as a board?
Eric. Well,
Phoenix?
hey, listen.
Or the two, the Tonica sisters who we're talking about.
Yes.
See, I pulled that name out of nowhere.
All right. Just forget I said stiff. and let's move on.
Okay.
But that's what's happening over on Patreon.
Yes.
We have RFR Q&A, and we're back into routine with that. I believe we got a Joe Dallas coming up soon, and other names that you might be familiar with here in the show. And then I'll be working with the Babu Freaks on getting that show back on the air. Our schedules have been kind of messed up as we went from December into January. But me and the Freaks will get it together. And,
Get your freak on.
RFR RPG also will return. So it's going to be a good year over at Patreon. There's something I skipped, though. I think I did another Q&A, and I just wanted to bring it up. Of course, you released your video toying around with Swank, which can only be seen on Patreon. But the Q&A, was it the one I did with Peter Beiser, or which one?
You mentioned the Beiser, I believe.
There was a show we did. We ranked the Star Wars streaming shows. Yeah, that's the one
you talked about first. Yeah.
Okay.
You led with
the reason why I wanted to rank them, because I don't typically do that with the Star Wars films, because that shifts like the wind with me. But the streaming shows I have like really firm opinions about, and I found myself revisiting the Kenobi series over the holidays. Mm-hmm. I just got sucked into it. I don't know why. I felt like now was the right time to revisit it 3+ years later. Yeah. But it was a great viewing experience because it didn't have all that social media angst swirling around it, and didn't really have to wait between episodes, just bounce from one to another. And, the flaws are there, of course, but also there's some great stuff with Ewan McGregor and some just really great Star Wars stuff happening in that show. Lots of stormtrooper activity. There's, of course, the two showdowns between Vader and Ben, which, one was okay and one was unbelievable.
Is epic, just absolutely epic. Everything I wanted it to be.
I just can't understand why they would want to shoot a Star Wars sequence of such great importance in a quarry, because that's essentially where they were. You see all the same machinery around them that I can see 3 minutes from my house. It's on my route to work. I drive by a quarry, and those guys are mining limestone, and it's using all the same machinery, and there's these big piles of rocks and things, and it looks exact. I drive by it, I like, there's the Kenobi shooting.
I don't give it a pass because I think it's, considering that they had the volume and they could have been literally anywhere for that. But I know they were in the throes of COVID. So I'm sure that caused
COVID
certain limitations.
The threat of COVID doesn't strip you of creativity. And, who was unavailable? Those effects artists all work on computers, and they probably have souped up stuff in their homes.
They were like, we're going to do practical effects. What, with gas propelled fires underneath these rocks? It was so janky.
Yeah, and it didn't make sense. A lot of the motivation behind all of that. However,
setting aside, just the standoff didn't make any sense.
Yeah, it should have never happened.
No.
And Vader there were moments in the show where he appears to be superpowered, like when he pulls that ship down from taking off with the Force, and he rips panels off of it.
That's right out of the video games, man. That's right out of the video games.
A little overpowered. But that moment before the duel in the quarry, he comes into that village, Vader does, and he's snapping necks and things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
he's like Vecna from Stranger Things. People just breaking in half and stuff. Yeah, he's nuts.
So moments like that I was really impressed with. And there are just certain shots of Vader that I really like. And there's certain shots of Vader I really don't like. I thought the Bacta tank stuff was really cool. When they
I love that.
All of it, and they pull him out of there and they're applying all of his mechanics to him and stuff. I was like, wow, that's incredible. And, the flaws with the Reva storyline are so obvious. And it doesn't feel like it connects. It just feels like a distraction from the main story. The main event was Vader versus Ben. And so I ate this up and, you know, only tried to see the entertaining stuff in there because, I mean, I've already been disappointed by the show. So I mean, I know it's coming. Yeah. So I'm just trying to pick the gold nuggets out of this thing. And of course, Ewan's great in it. Hayden's great in it. That flashback scene when they're training is great.
Yep.
And there's echoes of that in their final duel and stuff. And boy, Ian McDiarmid really phones it in though. In his appearance there as a hologram, he's like,
I remember thinking that at the time.
You seem agitated, my friend. What's wrong?
It's like he's not spitting out his words like the Emperor does.
No,
you seem agitated, my friend. What is this pansy dialogue they're giving the Emperor?
Yeah, and I think some of this is like the technology. It's like, hey, we can, you know what we can do? We can just get Ian on a FaceTime on our iPhone, and that'll work. We don't even have to fly him out here. We'll save all kinds of money, and then the performance suffers because he's in his dining room with a FaceTime camera, with his iPhone or whatever. Like, I know that's great in a pinch, but when it becomes what you rely on, I definitely think that it degrades the final product for sure. Yeah. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. On the other hand, I like what you're saying about rewatching this show because you can rewatch, and I think when we initially watch something, it's part of our job. We add value here at Rebel Force Radio, so our commentary, our analysis, that's adding value to your experience as a fan and our experiences as fans. But when you watch it again and again, you could sit there and just focus and dwell on the things that you don't like, or you can sit there and focus and dwell on the things that you do like and that do give you joy and that do make you feel like a kid again and do feel like Star Wars. That's the way I prefer to do it.
Yeah, and I see a lot of evidence of that stuff in the Kenobi series. So, it was worth revisiting. And so, I mean, then I became a little obsessed for a week. I said this to Michael. He's like, what do you mean obsessed with the Obi-Wan Kenobi? I said, well, now I'm reading the comics adaptation with the soundtrack playing in my earbuds. Oh. And I watched the whole series, and I watched the documentary, and then I watched the fan edit called the Patterson Cut. And that's out there for free, and you can watch that anytime you want. It's great editing that the guy did to boil it down into a 2.5-hour movie and do things to eliminate the Reva subline and the Inquisitor. Like when Reva gets stabbed by Vader and the saber is poking out through her back, she's dead in the Patterson cut. Sorry if there's spoilers, but you don't see her again.
Yeah.
It completely eliminates that nonsense that happens on the Lars farm with her chasing after Luke.
Oh, yeah, right, yes. To get back at Vader, because she's the one person in the whole galaxy that has figured this out.
Yeah, I mean, even her motivations seem way off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are things that exist in the show, but the Patterson cut does make it better, I will say. I endorse the Patterson cut.
I haven't watched that yet. I've had it saved forever, but yeah.
It's worthwhile. I mean, he moves a lot of sequences around in order, and it's way more effective, especially in the first half of the thing. He moves things around, and it plays better as a story, and it tightens the focus on Vader and Ben. So just Google the Kenobi, the Patterson cut. I think he's done things for Book of Boba Fett too, and stuff like that, which I have not revisited. So with such zest and zeal. But I really enjoyed going back and looking at all that stuff without all the noise and, sit there and watch it as a fan without having to prepare for an after show or anything like that.
Right.
And also, to look at it with maybe a more sober perspective, because as a super fan, sometimes when I get introduced to new Star Wars stuff, I only see it for the fresh introduction of lore, and I tend to look beyond the stupid stuff. in almost an apologist sort of way. And I mean, that's just my nature as the super fan. And coming into this year, I'm going to really try to be more straightforward in my approach about this stuff and call out the stuff that I see that I don't care for.
So you're saying that Jimmy Mack has been holding back all these years?
No, not holding back. It's just I just want to enjoy the new Star Wars experiences, and sometimes people just can't stop peeing in the pool until the water is yellow. And it's without that, it's a more positive experience.
Yeah.
Just because I just want to enjoy it when it's debuting. I even felt that way about The Acolyte.
We had a blast with The Acolyte after shows. If you guys think, those that didn't watch the show, didn't enjoy, or didn't partake in the after shows, if you think that that's just a roast, us just sitting and roasting the show, you're very mistaken. We had a blast. We decided up front that we were going to talk about it on its own terms. We were going to talk about the story that was unfolding. I think by the end, especially with that last episode, I think we kind of gave it a sort of a once over in terms of just really where this thing ended up and how it got there. And in the weeks following, we've put it into context. But as far as just the episode by episode breakdown, it's all there, and it's all done with as much integrity as you'd expect anything else from RFR.
Yeah, agreed. And sometimes I start seeing it with clarity once it's been around for a little while. And just to see how it ages as, these fresh additions to the Star Wars canon keep happening. And then I see lists of things people put online. Like just today I was looking at all the Star Wars TV shows ranked. And it was different. We just did the live action stuff on the Q&A with me and Peter Weiser. But this list included animation too. Even things like the Ewoks and the Droids cartoons and stuff. They didn't rank very high.
I wouldn't think.
But it was just like the perspective of this particular fan who ranked them. Her ranking was way beyond anything that I would ever consider. Some of them she got right on, but some of her rationale for the way she ranked them was just purely absurd. And like she would bring in factors way outside of Star Wars or the stories themselves when she was ranking them.
Well, I think if you're going to do something like this, you have to let people know what parameters are you using, what criteria are you using, what context are you looking at these things? Because I think about, take a goofy show like The Super Friends, all right? It ran in the 70s and 80s. That is a goofy show. It's a kid's show. It's a kiddie show. But in my growing up, that's what introduced me to Batman. That's what introduced me to superheroes in general. So I have just a ton of sentimental love for that show and all of its goofiness. So if I sat down and I ranked, my favorite superhero cartoons, Super Friends is going to be on there. And so is the 1960s Spider-Man series going to be on there, as much of a trip as that is. So, but if I'm sitting there and I'm looking at quality, or I'm looking at adherence to canon or value in the long term of the characters, that would be a different way of ranking it.
Yeah, some of her criteria in this list was stuff that I would never consider or even think about. She ranked the Bad Batches last.
Last?
Yes.
Wow.
And the reason being is because D. Bradley Baker is not Maori descent from New Zealand.
Oh, well, that's an immediate disqualification for me. I would never read anything else that this woman wrote. And that's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, it was just
life.
Yeah. Like I said, bringing in outside factors. And she was using things like the Apu Simpsons comparison and stuff. And I was just like,
oh my God.
I was like, you're I thought we were just ranking the shows. We weren't, I didn't know that we.
Right. Can you
this
imagine?
This is not what I signed up for.
Imagine living that way. Imagine if that was just how you view, if that was your worldview. What a tortured joyless place that would be.
Right. Yeah. So, and naturally, she ranked the Acolyte super high, and
okay.
Yeah. So it's all right. At least she said Mandalorian was number one. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Sometimes there's things we can all agree on.
This is the way.
The way to what?
Oh, that's a saying from The Mandalorian.
Rebel Force Radio.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
All right, let's get into it. The new Kathleen Kennedy rumors. So entertainment journalist Matthew Filoni, through his website puck.com, says this: in the next week or two, Disney will finally confirm what we've all known for months. Kathleen Kennedy is indeed stepping down as Lucasfilm president, and Dave Filoni, currently the chief creative officer of the Star Wars unit, will be elevated into the top job. Simon Halls, Kennedy's personal publicist, has already set up her cushy exit interview. I'm sure the Pulitzer Committee is standing by for that piece of journalism. Little editorial here from Filoni. He says, Filoni has never really been a traditional executive, so they're giving him a partner in Lin-Wen Brennan, currently president and general manager of Lucasfilm Business. But he'll be the decider on the creative direction of the franchise in film, television, and any other platforms in the galaxy. Now, Jim, what's going to be very interesting here is if Dave settles into that CEO role, that president role, and Lin-Wen Brennan continues as sort of a COO role. But the way it's been talked about is that they're going to come into this position as a team, almost like a co-presidency. And if that is the case, then who does the buck stop with? And is it just going to be a question of, well, what is the buck about? Is the buck about a creative direction, or is the buck about something technical, logistical, budgetary, things like that? So it doesn't specify. I don't think Matthew knows exactly what the job titles are going to be, but it seems as though Dave is being augmented by Lin-Wen Brennan. And I tell you what, I didn't know much about Lin-Wen. I did a little bit of a deep dive. There is a fantastic interview with her back in 2023 on StarWars.com. Rather lengthy interview with her. So some things about her. First of all, she's Welsh. She started her professional career working for her brother, who founded a startup for a visual effects software company. And they found themselves working with ILM on Jurassic Park.
Yes.
And from there, she jumped ship and went to ILM and became president of ILM in 2008. And then in 2015, Kathleen Kennedy appointed her as general manager of Lucasfilm, where she, some of her claims to fame are, well, ILM expansion, having locations all over the world, the volume, or what they call the stagecraft technology, all of the immersive stuff they've been doing with the augmented reality and that sort of thing. So again, she's a mom, has great family relations, talks a lot about her mother, her grandmother. So I was very impressed with what I read. And nothing in any of this signals to me that she is going to be a co-creative with Dave Filoni. She is day-to-day, she's logistics, she's management. She's going to, I think, make sure that Dave is able to make his vision a reality. Yeah. So I think this is a great thing. You don't want to bog down a creative, whether it be George Lucas or Dave Filoni, with all that day-to-day management crap. So I'm happy about this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Lin-Wen, she's been with Lucasfilm for like 26 years now.
Yeah.
And she's basically going to just continue what she's been doing for Kathy Kennedy all these years. And Kathy Kennedy is going to give up the reins of any sort of creative control she has over Lucasfilm in general and just focus in on the couple of movies she's attached to right now, which is Mandalorian and Grogu, which is done, and Starfighter, which still has another year plus at least of post-production. So she'll be busy then, next year. But then what is she going to do after that? Is she going to continue to work on Star Wars films? Or is she going to jump over to Disney, maybe produce some Disney films? Or is she going to go back with her husband, Frank Marshall, and their production company that she resigned from when George Lucas offered her the gig of running Lucasfilm back 13 years ago? So there's a lot of different avenues for Kathy to go down. But there needs to be someone at Lucasfilm to guide the ship as far as Star Wars goes, and that's going to be Filoni now. And of course, they've been grooming him for this position for years. Kathy's been grooming him for this position. I don't know what this means for his career as a live action director, but if you want to look over at DC and see what James Gunn is doing over there, well, he's sitting in the executive suite for the studio as well, but he still is also found in the director's chair. So I believe Filoni will have a similar setup to what James Gunn has. So, I mean, it's going to be really a lot of the same old stuff going on here, Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah.
Well, the boss is the Disney Corporation, and we learned that with the Hunt for Ben Solo debacle from a few months ago.
Yes,
that's where the buck stops.
Right.
When it comes to this
don't forget that Iger's on his way out. He's on borrowed time.
Right.
So we'll see. And that's a whole mess there. I mean, there's a short list of people, but we this happened, how many years ago was it? They got Bob Chapek, and then Chapek was out 2 years later, and although
wasn't that long ago. That was like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah. But he was only in there for a couple of years. And even when he was there, Iger was sort of this phantom CEO that was lingering over him. So talk about set up to fail. But at any rate, I kind of look at this from the standpoint of I hope that this does take Filoni out of the director's chair. I hope that he is the guy that is truly looking at the 50,000-foot view of everything, from the publishing stuff to what we see on streaming to what we see in the movie theaters, and over licensing to some degree. I want Dave Filoni. I would feel more comfortable with Dave Filoni having his hands on the Star Wars as a whole, including things like Indiana Jones and Willow and Dark Crystal, whatever the other Lucasfilm properties there are. I like him in that role more than I do with what we've seen so far. And I'm looking at Ahsoka. I got to say, I'm looking at season 1 of Ahsoka. We were talking about how Kenobi, our perception of Kenobi may have changed. I don't know if you've gone back and rewatched Ahsoka season 1 lately. It's something I'm intending to do. I'm looking over at my 4K box set over there. I've got no excuse to not pop it in and review it, but I just don't feel that. I feel that tug as a Star Wars commentator, but I don't necessarily feel that tug as a fan. And it's tough when, I want to feel the tug as a fan first. That's where I want to feel it, not as somebody who goes, well, I really should do this from a sort of a clinical standpoint. And I think it's a big failure on Filoni's part. And I think that he really, he missed with Ahsoka, big time. Charlie Brown with the football, missed, boom.
Well, I've spoken about that ad nauseum on our after shows and stuff, so I don't know if I have the energy to get in all that. But I mean, it's clear that at least he does great with guys like George Lucas and Jon Favreau.
Right.
He's a good wingman.
Good collaborator.
But I mean, best of luck to Dave Filoni. And I'm with you. I feel comfortable knowing he's there. But also what I know about Dave Filoni is he's such a company man. And so I can't imagine anything's going to change over at Lucasfilm as far as their approach to things. I think it's.
You don't think he'll push
more
back more?
Same old.
Do you not see him as someone that now that he's in the big chair, that he's going to assert himself creatively more than say Kathleen Kennedy did?
Well, Kathy Kennedy's approach just sucked because she treated Star Wars and Lucasfilm like she was teaching a film class in college where she would sit these people down and say, this is a great Star Wars story, but let's make it a Deborah Chow story. Let's make it a Sean Levy movie,
or Leslie Headland.
A Leslie Headland. Yeah. And this gets into these filmmakers' heads, and they're just like, oh my God, well, I have to start throwing aspects of my personality into this. And sometimes these filmmakers, their personalities suck.
Right.
And I don't want their personalities anywhere near my Star Wars.
No, I'm a Star Wars
That's what was so
fan.
great about George Lucas is George had no personality. That's why Star Wars was great.
You know what? I think you're onto something. I think you're really onto the bigger the personality, the crappier Star Wars, maybe. You're right. That was the most. You're so right that was sort of an academic college professor tact. And I think back to when we started hearing after the acquisition that it was, instead of it being a insert director name story, it was, we want a Star Wars comedy. We want a Star Wars war movie. We want a Star Wars Western. We want a Star Wars. And they thought they could hop genre in and around. And then once Gareth Edwards gave them a war film, a Star Wars war film, they go, wait, we don't want that. And, insert Tony Gilroy, and the rest is history. So then she pivots and she's like, well, no, now we want a, like you say, Deborah Chow. We want a Ron Howard, or we want whatever the case is.
The safe picks. I think Deborah was in a little bit over her head to be running that and directing that entire series. I think she was in a little over her head, and it shows. I mean, you can make the excuses you want about COVID or whatever, but I was just surprised because the stuff she's done for The Mandalorian's been really good. Yes. But then she's under the watchful eye of a guy like Dave Filoni or whatever. With the Kenobi show, she was just there. There were some other producers, one of them being Kathleen Kennedy, who was just saying, make it more Deborah Chow. And that's probably where the character from Reva really starts to come into the spotlight more and more. Hard to say because there's no legitimate making ofs or anything like that. We don't get the curtain pulled back just a little bit sometimes. I was watching the Kenobi documentary, and there was a moment for our high ground fans. They like to call in and just yell high ground at us from time to time. There was a high ground moment in the Kenobi documentary with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen as they were watching that scene from Revenge of the Sith. I think they were standing in the volume. Could you imagine seeing a Star Wars film being projected in there? And they were standing there, and there's a little back and forth between the two of them about high ground.
You warned me. You had the high ground.
If I had $1 for every time someone's told me I had the high ground.
High ground. Oh, that's great.
So there you go. Every time you guys call in and say that, you owe Ewan McGregor $1. Because he wished it, and we're going to fulfill his wishes like he's a Make-A-Wish kid here on RFR. So, but yeah, we're kind of getting away from the story here, and that is, as per speculation, that Dave Filoni is going to essentially take over Kathleen Kennedy's creative role, and be the overseer of all things Star Wars. That's what Kathleen
All
Kennedy
things
did.
Lucasfilm.
Yeah. Oh, all things Lucasfilm.
All
yeah, I
things
guess he would be,
Lucasfilm.
but Lucasfilm is committed to Star Wars pretty much.
Right. But I mean, there is potential. But there's potential. There's that
could
Indiana
be.
Jones reboot that there's been lurking around.
Yeah, but you still got to get the Disney guys to green light it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I read some reports where Dial of Destiny could be considered one of the most expensive flops in the history of cinema. So I don't think that's lost on the Disney guys who are like Bob Iger or whoever his successor is going to be. They're all just looking at the numbers. And, you present them an Indiana Jones streaming series or something, unless it features Dr. Henry Jones himself, Indiana. Nobody's going to want to watch it. Don't give me any Belloc spin-offs or anything like that.
A Belloc story. No, we don't want that.
A Belloc story. Okay. But so I really think that Dave is going to keep things status quo, especially right out of the gate.
Oh, sure. They don't want to you don't want to rock the boat right away.
Right.
I just feel, and I could be way off base because I have nothing other than just a feeling. I just feel that, well, here's one thing I know. I know Dave Filoni has forgotten more about Star Wars than Kathleen Kennedy has ever known in her entire life. So,
agreed.
Number one. And because of that, I feel that Dave will be rooted and grounded more and have more of a foundation from a place to push back with some of these more, say, less than desirable requests from the mouse. Now, of course, you don't want to risk your job because if you do, that doesn't solve anything. You don't want to put a target on your back. But I think he'll come from a better place. I think he's a better pitch guy. Do you remember how he would just enthrall? Now, granted, these are Star Wars fans, but he would just enthrall people from early days. We saw his very first convention appearance, you and me, Jim.
Yeah.
And we knew right from the get-go that there was something special about this guy.
Right. Yeah.
And so I just see him as being a more effective communicator and advocate for the Star Wars brand within the Disney portfolio.
It depends on how well he can manage up.
Yes.
You're dealing with a tough room when it gets to the top of the ivory tower at Walt Disney Corporation.
Right.
We'll see. I assume Kathleen Kennedy has been mentoring Filoni, and I think she will continue in that role beyond whenever she steps down from the position. They say that there's some softball exit interview that she has planned with some journalist that's going to break the news.
It'll be that guy. What's his name? The guy that's always carrying the water for her. Is he at Variety or is he at, he's at one of those outlets. He's the one that did the piece about, well, she's not really retiring. This is just totally unfounded. She's stepping down from her role. I can't think of his name, but.
Yeah, it's, the spin doctors are all out there.
Right. It'll be him.
And Lucasfilm, they know how to
Or it'll
wag
be
the
that
dog.
Bresnikan guy.
Yeah, right, yeah. Always the safe picks. And Dave Filoni is a very safe pick, because they're looking to maintain the status quo, and they know Filoni's going to do that. They're not hiring from the outside. They're not bringing in somebody else who's going to bring in all of his own people and really give Lucasfilm maybe the cleansing they've needed for all of these years. I think there's a lot of people walking around in the hallways of Lucasfilm these days whose contributions are quite stale, and maybe their best days are behind them because there's no edge anymore. Everything are these safe picks or some sort of pandering idea that is trying to pander to a very small percentage of the fan base that still exists. And I think they really need to get it together and start looking at what makes Star Wars Star Wars. And it ain't making it more Leslie Headland or more Tony Gilroy for that matter.
Right.
They have to find a place, and I think Favreau has found it. But who knows what his future is going to be like at Lucasfilm. He might be looking.
Filoni's now his boss.
Wings. From what I, well, I think in some ways he always has been. But Favreau has such clout, it's almost impossible to boss him around. He's the guy who launched the Marvel universe. He's the guy who launched the live-action Disney universe. He's the guy who launched The Mandalorian and really saved Star Wars. I mean, those three things alone. And then I'm not even bringing up his own accomplishments as an actor, as a director of just like quirky indie films. And
writer, producer,
great
director,
writer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, prolific, actually. And so he's a top talent who I would imagine might get to the end of his rope with Star Wars sooner or later. I think it's great that he's actually directing the Mandalorian and Grogu film, and he's not just signed on as some executive producer, but he's really going to be hands-on. And this could launch a whole Mandalorian and Grogu cinematic universe where we could see these films every other year maybe. And it could be a continuing storyline with returning characters and recurring events and things that you could really get used to and sink your teeth into, as opposed to all this jumping around the chronology that's going on.
Yeah, this is interesting because this is coming at a time where there are also rumors, and I'm just going to label them as rumors, that we've vetted amongst our own Jedi Council a little bit, and there's definitely some truth to it that from what we can tell, is that Lucasfilm is pumping the brakes on this Mando, Ahsoka, the Mandoverse, this particular timeline, and that Ahsoka season 2 very well could be sort of the wrap up of this particular era of Star Wars.
Well, I think that's speculation based on the fact that there is no indication of where live action streaming is going to be going in the future for Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I think some people are just jumping to the conclusion, well, then Ahsoka season 2 is going to wrap it all up. But if The Mandalorian and Grogu does well at the box office, and it's a gamble, it really is. I mean, you look at box office returns. I always bring up the Fantastic Four film, which had a great opening weekend, but really fell off the map that second week. And it's just runs in theaters for films nowadays are so stunted and short. And it's hard to even, how do you judge the box office of something like Titanic up against a film that gets released in 2026 that's only in the theaters for 10 days.
Yeah. Now they account for inflation. You're going to have some sort of algorithm that somehow accounts by, number of screening, something in order to create equity. I don't think you can create equity on that scale. When you're talking about a film that was out for like Titanic, 13, 14 months.
Yeah.
Now, it is possible, and Avatar, this third Avatar that was released, is proving that you can hit $1 billion, at least globally, within a matter of a few weeks. But I don't know, man. I did nothing against the Avatar films. I haven't seen any of them, so I'm not criticizing them. But it is the strangest phenomenon where these movies make $1 billion, they become the #1 movie, and yet I hear no one talking about them at all.
Right.
Ever.
You don't know anybody who's seen them. But maybe it's just, a younger demographic is really supporting this stuff. Like the same demographic that supported the Minecraft movie. Now, I don't know anybody who saw that either, but I know it was a huge success and the most popular film last year. So I know a lot of people went to it because they were doing wacky stuff in the theater. They were smuggling live chickens and let it loose at a certain part of the film. It was like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but even more insane.
Yeah.
And so there was like audience participation going on and all that. So it was an event, and I know a lot of people participated in that stuff. But I mean, even my own sons waited for it to hit streaming, and there's Gen Z as it gets. So it's hard to even predict how The Mandalorian and Grogu will do, or what is considered a success anymore as far as theatrical releases go. You can see the real obvious stuff, like you brought up Avatar. But, I mean, what's the budget for this Mandalorian and Grogu film? I have a feeling that they tried to keep it reasonable. They didn't just throw gobs and gobs of nonstop money at it. They weren't raiding the vaults on Atten or anything to empty them out. And it was. I think they're being frugal with the budget for this this Mando and Grogu film. So what would be considered a success? Well, we'd have to find out what the actual shooting budget for the thing was. And if they kept this thing reasonable to like a George Lucas friendly $200 million or a little bit below that, but still they're able to provide the thrill and the joy and the spectacle and make The Mandalorian and Grogu a film, like they'll have to market it like they have with the Avatar film. See it on the biggest screen you possibly can find anywhere. They do that. And so then people are going to the IMAX and they're paying a premium now to see the movie, which, drives up the box office. So if they can pull that off with The Mandalorian and Grogu, we'll see. The marketing has been non-existent for this film.
It's
in my
nowhere.
opinion.
It's nowhere.
And it's coming out in 4.5 months.
A Star Wars film.
Yes.
With arguably the most popular character since, I don't know, Darth Vader. I don't know. I mean, the Baby Yoda, Grogu, caused an absolute sensation. And so it's not as though, if this was Starfighter and it was sort of starting from scratch, something brand new, you could kind of understand why they might lay low on the merch and some of the promotion to see how it takes off and then come in. But with Mando and Grogu, particularly Grogu, who has already become iconic in just a few short years, it boggles my mind. I can't believe why it's not everywhere. I was seeing cardboard standees for season 5 of Stranger Things 6 months ago in Target. 6 months ago.
Right. So that just tells you that maybe the studio itself is a little skittish about this Mandalorian and Grogu movie because they're hesitant to throw any marketing bucks behind it.
Oh.
Same story, same old song and dance we heard with the Solo film, which its marketing was also non-existent for a May Star Wars film release by this time of year in 2018. I mean, obviously, The Last Jedi was still in theaters, so we were dealing with a weird period of time for Star Wars.
But here's the difference, though, at least with Solo, you walked into the toy aisle at Walmart or Target, and there was Solo branded merchandise.
Right.
There was a line of action figures. There was role play gear. There was.
Yes. I cherish my Tobias Beckett.
As does everyone that has such a thing. But with this, it's you're right. It's not there. By the way, I did find, according to the California Film Commission, these things have to be published because of the tax credits. They have to be disclosed. There is a $166.4 million production budget estimated for Mandalorian and Grogu.
Oh, okay.
And
so
that includes about $21.7 million in California tax credits, which helped lower those costs. So,
good work.
So we could be looking at something around 180 if you want to throw those tax credits in there. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for a film like that, it would have to make probably $6 or $7 million for it to be considered successful.
$100 million. Mm-hmm.
$100 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously. This isn't 1977 anymore.
Yeah.
And we're not on Tatooine anymore. So you just got to keep your fingers crossed. Now, the thing that is really going to affect the box office of this Star Wars film, unlike any previous Star Wars film, are the return customers. Will people go back to see The Mandalorian and Grogu 3 to 5 more times, like traditionally Star Wars fans have done in support of saga films throughout the years? Even during the sequel era, I must have seen each sequel a minimum of 4 times in the theater. Yeah. Probably.
That repeat, and that's hard, particularly when the motivation, the incentive is lessened because of that release window. So if you see it and you think, well, I could go see it again, but if I wait a month, this thing's going to show up on Disney Plus. So yeah, the incentive because my gosh, when these movies would come out, you'd go see them 3 or 4 or 5 times just to kind of store it up because you knew you probably weren't going to see it for another year or so.
That's right.
Maybe it would show up where you could rent it. That was true in the 90s, but I'm talking about like in the, we used to have to wait years before these movies would come out, even on home video back in the 70s and 80s. So
even in the prequel era, George was always very fond of making people wait.
He did. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He even said he wasn't going to release any of the prequel films on DVD until he had completed all of them in 2005. But DVDs just became so big and popular that he had to do something. So he had to start releasing the DVDs.
That's
right. And he did starting in 2000 with The Phantom Menace was the first one. The Phantom Menace was the first one.
That was a big deal. I think that's what got you to buy your first DVD player.
I didn't even own a DVD player. I was still very much living in the VHS age. And it was just, I just couldn't understand DVDs because you couldn't record on them. I did eventually find a recordable DVD machine and had a blast with it until I broke it. Or it broke. However, it self-destructed. It did. But our first DVD player was the one with the tray that comes out.
Oh, the disc changer.
5 discs in
yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I can load up the whole saga, man.
Yeah,
just go
that was
disc
key.
to disc. You needed a 6-disc changer. Really, to go on with
speaking of DVDs, when you were showing the Clone Wars, the Genndy Clone Wars discs earlier, it reminded me of where one of my DVDs ended up forever. Yes, I had a Jeep back then, and Michael was 9 or 10, and Dylan was like 6, and we had the screen that would come down off the roof, and it was a DVD player. Cars used to have those all the time before everyone had.
The little screen and entertain the kids while you're driving around. Yeah.
It would just kind of flip open, and there would be a little screen up there, and then they could watch it, and they wouldn't bother you while you were driving. And that was the real reason it was there, was so they don't bother you while you're driving. And we put the Clone Wars disc in there, and it never ejected. So so that thing was the only disc the kids could watch forever. And when my Jeep finally decided to crap out on me, and I had to, I then got a Toyota Highlander. I drove my Jeep to the dealership, and when I stopped it in the parking lot, it just went, and then all the steam came shooting up out of the thing. And I'm like, oh, is this going to affect the value of my trade-in? And the guy looked at me. He's like, no, it's probably not. And I said, well, if it means anything, there is bonus value. Clone Wars DVD is stuck in the DVD player. He looked at me and he's like, oh, yeah, okay. Like he was like actually considering. Oh,
yeah, I'm gonna.
That's a considerable markup on this, right?
Hey, Al, there's a Clone War DVD in this.
All the mechanics come running out of the garage. Clone Wars. Is it the Genndy?
Oh, man.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Rebel Force Radio.
Speaking of Mandalorian and Grogu, there is a new photo that showed up in USA Today. And we have some quotes, too. Are these new? These are from Jon Favreau?
These are older quotes. These are older quotes that I just thought would tie into our conversation. The quotes from Favreau are more from an interview he did with Collider last year.
Okay.
But I don't think we covered this stuff. And it sort of addresses some of the things we've been talking about throughout this show. Most notably, Favreau addresses fan concerns that the Mandalorian and Grogu will just be like a longer, stretched out version of a TV show episode or, a season or whatever. And so he says that they shot it in a completely different way to take advantage of the larger screens, most specifically IMAX. And this is something that I said earlier could really benefit The Mandalorian and Grogu if they promote it like Avatar has been promoted. See it on the biggest screen. Favreau says that they... Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, I was going to say, they need to lean into that so that they can create a value proposition for a film versus something on a streaming series.
So even as they were doing tests, they had IMAX in mind. And Favreau says they really leaned into it. As we did tests, we looked at what looked good in IMAX. A lot of stuff in space looked great. And a lot of sets we actually built them taller to really embrace the opportunity of a larger screen. So they got these big towering sets now. And he says the stuff in space, whatever happened to the dogfights in Star Wars? Where did they go?
Now they just talk to each other. You notice that? The old Republic or the new Republic guards, they're just like, hey, you got your code, whatever that code that they have to have. They're just talking. And there's a little outmaneuver, but where are the dogfights?
Yeah, there's never anything that's like lengthy or that is choreographed to tell a story within itself. Yeah. Think about the story that gets told with the Falcon busting out of the Death Star and Luke's up in the one gun turret and Chewie's in the cockpit with Leia and 3PO. I'm melting. All of this stuff is happening, providing all of these great character moments. All right, kid, don't get cocky. All of that great stuff. And you put it all in there with these great dogfights going on with the Falcon and the TIE fighters.
Even the asteroid field in Empire.
Brilliant. Off the charts, brilliant.
Yeah.
And then, in Empire, Jedi, you have, obviously the most choreographed action sequence in that is the speeder bike chase through the forest, which is amazing. But you have the whole raid on the Death Star, which features all kind of cool stuff. So we got to get that kind of action back in Star Wars because it was largely absent from the sequel trilogy, unless you could think of an example of one moment in any of those three films that compare to those examples I just mentioned from the original trilogy. Well, let me know, because that's where they should be spending their money. Just give us some great space battles again.
There were some, there were some dramatic moments. I'm thinking about, when Rose Tico's sister drops the bomb down and it finally blows up the ship like that, there's tension in that moment, but it's not the faster, more intense that you're talking about, where everything is just breakneck kind of chaotic speed, and then they just slow down for a second to give the characters a beat, and then it's back to chaos. George did that so well.
Yeah.
He could tell stories on all these different levels at the same time. And that is through editing. I mean, George is a brilliant editor. I think that's a lot of what it comes down to.
It was all Marcia.
Yeah.
Remember when he said that? Remember when he said that?
Yeah.
Never. And also I shouldn't discount the moment in The Force Awakens when Rey takes off in the Falcon for the first time and they start having a shootout with TIE fighters on Jakku. I mean, that's interesting stuff. And she flies into the Star Destroyer wreckage, and they chase after her, and she positions the Falcon in such a way so Finn's jammed cannon can get a clean shot. That's good stuff, but it's not happening in space. It has to be in space. This is Space Wars. Damn it. I mean, Star Wars. Let's see the stars in space. But, so there are things that can be considered dogfight-like in I stand corrected on that because there were two decent examples there. As far as the Mandalorian and Grogu bringing in new fans, that's always a challenge because we've been through 3 seasons of streaming series with the Mandalorian and Grogu already. So Favreau responds to that by saying, a lot of people know these characters but haven't seen the show. So it's not just that there are people who saw the show and people who don't know the characters. There's a big range. There are people who don't know the characters. There are people who are familiar with the characters but never watched the show. Then there's the people who watch the show and kind of know the characters pretty well. Then there's the people who watch the show many times and they're super obsessed with the characters. We're trying to play to all of those people is what Favreau is trying to say.
Yes.
If I can clarify for Mr. Favreau. But he says we want to reward people who've been there since the beginning, but also invite new audiences in.
Yeah.
And so just, hopefully they'll do with this film what they should have done with Ahsoka season 1 is just start fresh. Start from a whole new foundation and keep the familiar characters and situations and things to make it all tie in.
That's exactly the opposite of what they did with Ahsoka. They weren't inviting new audiences in at all with that show.
No, they weren't. You had to watch 4 seasons of animated Star Wars Rebels to get a grasp on what was going on with the Ahsoka show. And, I tried showing it to my wife, and she just said, no, I'm getting crushed under the weight of all this lore. I can't follow it.
Yeah.
She goes, I love the girl power in this show, but I just can't, I can't stay connected with it because I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And I'm like, that's a big blow, to a show like Ahsoka. But Favreau seems to be sensitive about this. He realizes there's going to be diehards in the audience. He realizes there are going to be people who are mildly familiar with The Mandalorian and Star Wars, and he's going to try to play to all of them. So good luck with all that.
Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody!
Hey, look at that. We made it to Star Wars and pop culture this week. And a good thing, too, because everybody is talking about that big finale of Stranger Things Season 5. And I caught it because I was watching it with everybody else when the episode dropped. And yes, this is a fun Star Wars reference here in Stranger Things. Episode 5, Shock Jock. And by the way, one of the first things I did when I started watching season 5, I texted Mac. I think you were still in the hospital. And I said, hey, man, I don't know if you have Netflix in the hospital, but you might want to check this out because there's some fun radio stuff because they use a radio station circa the 80s. And this radio station looks like it dates back to the 50s or 60s. As sort of their cover, their home base, and I thought, oh, that's got Jimmy Mack written all over it. He'll like the ambiance of that. So anyway,
I do like the ambiance. I'm all about the ambiance, you know that.
Yeah.
But I noticed this on the Rebel Force Radio Facebook group, and so I want to thank Eric Redding and Ryan Dunn for the tip because Eric told me it happened, and Ryan told me where exactly in the episode I'll find it. And like you said, Jason, season 5, episode 5, Shock Jock. And and I did notice in the scene that Dustin is wearing a radio station T-shirt.
Yes.
So I assume that's yes. The what?
It's the Squawk. WSQK is the station.
I was afraid you said something I might have to bleep in post. But no, that's not the case. Jason keeps it family friendly around here, and I try to. But here's Stranger Things. This is a Star Wars reference that happens. I don't know what's happening at all. So they're in a creepy, dark place with tentacles and, just doing what the Stranger Things kids do.
What is it we're looking for?
You've all seen Return of the Jedi, I hope?
Yeah, it's the one with the teddy bears.
Ewoks.
Yeah, it's the best one.
Is it?
No, but every child loves it, so it tracks. In the film, if you recall, the rebels need to destroy a second Death Star, but it's surrounded by a protective energy shield, which is created by a shield generator.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the summary of a movie we've all seen.
It's an oddly relevant movie, Steve. Look, I think this circular flesh wall is Vecna's version of an energy shield, except it's not sci-fi, it's supernatural.
Supernatural. Well,
so boy, that one guy is Debbie Downer, is he not? I mean, is he just like mopey in response to everything? Yeah, thanks for telling us about
you're talking about
movie.
Steve? Yeah, well, I mean, he and Dustin are having some they're having some problems. Their friendship is at not in a good place here when season 5 begins.
Oh, I
so
see.
he's just not humoring Dustin in this moment.
Right.
But Dustin ends up being mistaken about his theory. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh,
but it's still a great Star Wars reference. Did help me as a viewer, because I'll be honest, there are a lot of moments in this season of Stranger Things I don't know what the hell is going on.
Oh,
and
is
so
that
when
right?
so when he threw out that allusion to Return of the Jedi, I go, okay, I'm with you.
I get it. Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, it's not sci-fi, it's supernatural.
Right.
Okay, all right. I get it. A shield generator. Okay. But so he was wrong, you say. So should he have instead sent the torpedo down the exhaust vent and try to blow up Vecna that way?
Just the opposite. You did not want to attack this thing. Bad things happened when you attacked this wall.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So stay away from the supernatural fleshy shield wall. That's a good tip for anybody watching Stranger Things. So another thing that a lot of people have tipped us off about is Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. So this is a tip from Jonathan Bell and a bunch of other people who told me exactly where to find a Star Wars reference in Wake Up Dead Man. I only watched this scene, so I can't really set it up or anything. If you want to know what led to this Star Wars reference, then you have to watch Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out story. Now, I have said that it is our policy here on RFR that whatever Rian Johnson says about Star Wars gets filed in the IDGAF folder. But this is different because this actually does qualify as Star Wars in pop culture. So I'm letting it slide. And it's so snarky of Rian Johnson, too, to sneak a Star Wars reference into one of his Knives Out films, just to let us know he's still poking around. Look at me, I'm still thinking about Star Wars, like thinking about other characters I can completely massacre, like I did a Luke Skywalker.
Well, he's doing a great job with Daniel Craig in these Knives Out movies because he gets further and further out from any kind of James Bond vibe with each successive one. So I tapped out
right?
after the second. Second one,
I had been watching Star Trek The Next Generation for a number of years. And then all of a sudden, Patrick Stewart showed up on Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And he was acting like a total goofball. And I'd never seen Patrick Stewart outside of the show, except one time in a college literary class, we watched Othello, and he was in it. He was the king. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, it's Picard. And then like other people were, oh, you watch that show? I'm like, yeah, watch it. And I actually, built up a little Star Trek gang there in that literature class. But so that's the only time I ever saw him was Make It So. And
sure.
And Shakespeare. So when I saw him on the Jay Leno show being goofy, I was like, no, I have to turn this off. I can't accept Picard acting this way. This is not Mike Picard. No, sir. So with Daniel Craig, I mean, I could see him. I've never seen Craig in anything outside of Bond. I never saw any of his other films.
I saw Road to Perdition. That was the only other thing I'd ever seen him in at the time.
So, so I can see how, if he's acting like a goof in this movie or whatever.
I just hate his look. He's acting fine. I hate his look. I hate the long hair. Hate the scruffy look that he's got.
That's better because that's a huge departure from James Bond, and I think then you could separate the two. When Patrick Stewart was on The Tonight Show, he was bald and looked just like Picard, and I could not accept it.
I loved the first Knives Out movie. I really did.
Okay.
I thought it was fantastic. And then the second one, I was like, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Oh, I thought this was the second one.
This is the third one. This is the third one. Yeah.
I hope he keeps making them. We got to keep Ryan Johnson busy. That's one thing I know, Is Poker Face coming back anytime soon? Let's just keep riding this wave of momentum here before Filoni then says,
you know what I think would be a great idea?
No. Tell me no.
I really enjoyed working with Ryan Johnson. Maybe I got his number still?
Boy, my Filoni impersonation is taking on a whole new life of its own.
Well, if he called once, if he called once in a while, we'd hear his voice. We could do it more justice.
Right. Who even knows what Filoni sounds like anymore? This could be an AI Filoni that they're promoting over at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, it's like Howard Hughes. We'll never see him again.
Has anybody actually seen Dave Filoni in the flesh and talked to him recently?
It's actually just Kathleen Kennedy. She's just using the effigy of Dave Filoni. She's
got that cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
And there's this holographic projection of Filoni's beard that goes on his face.
Remember that droid that projected the face of the Emperor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have that.
Yeah, they have that. They should have that with, it could be Kathleen Kennedy. She projects the face of Filoni. I got a great idea. Acolyte season 2.
The line between art and reality has just become wafer thin. So let's hear good old Rye Guy's Star Wars reference that he squeezed into Wake Up Dead Man.
This money, your cult of personality. Are you kidding me? Give me 4 years. You could be president. Together, we can build a real empire. As father and son.
Like in Star Wars?
Yeah, exactly, like the Rebels.
Like in Star Wars. But I guess this guy has become
the Rebels. That joined me like father and son. That's not the Rebels.
Yeah, good job, Ryan. You screwed up your Star Wars reference just like you screwed up Episode 8.
Like the Rebels. No, exactly. Like Luke and Vader, or like the Empire. I mean,
if you ask Ryan about it, why that guy said that, he goes,
I just thought it would be good for the story.
Listen, my Ryan Johnson sounds a lot like my Dave Filoni now. Maybe they're the same people. Who knows what goes on behind closed doors at Disney/Lucasfilm.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week and our first RFR of 2026. I think we're off to a great start. What do you think? And as we talked about earlier, we've got all kinds of exciting things happening on Patreon, so please check it out. And special thanks to everybody who supports us there. You can also, it doesn't cost you anything to go on the Patreon site. Go to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio and peruse all the content that's available. You can sort of, it's like window shopping. So feel free to window shop and take a look at what awaits you. And cost of entry is low, and we love to see you there. Weekly full show video is available. Exclusive podcasts you can't get anywhere else. Also some new video series that are starting up. And it is a tremendous community of the best Star Wars fans in the galaxy. And you hear many of them here. You hear many of them with our voicemails here on the weekly podcast. We also love to have you hang out with us over on YouTube. That's where we do all of our after shows, our live streams, things like that. And there's just a whole repository of greatest hits, great moments, all of that, and clips of this show, the video form of this show, available over on YouTube. So check that out. By the way, there's supposedly, have you heard about this, Jim? Speaking of YouTube, there's a new button on the mobile app where if you watch someone's video, you can like it, you can subscribe, but you can also hype the video. Have you seen this? Hype the video. So now we got to ask people to hype it. So please hype our videos.
It's crazy, man. All the hoops we have to jump through.
I know. Anyway, we're also on all of the socials. We're on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We're not on all the socials. We're on those two.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the only ones I'm really interested in using anymore.
Instagram and Facebook.
Punched out of like most of the others.
Just go to the website, rebelforceradio.com. That has got everything you need to know about RFR right there.
Yeah.
But in addition to Patreon, something else you can do costs you nothing to help out the show here. And that's just to do what you're doing right now. You got to the end of the show. This is the credits section. This is the sign off. So thank you for that. And please continue spreading the word about Rebel Force Radio, the podcast. We've got new Star Wars movies on the horizon. We've got a big anniversary year. 2026 is the prequel year for the big 50th anniversary. So we got a lot of exciting things to look forward to. So please make sure the Star Wars fans in your life are listening here as well. So that's going to do it for us. We will see you next week on Rebel Force Radio. For RFR, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
High ground!